What's going on, YouTube? It's Paul Piper back here with you, and tonight we're going to be doing a review of one of the iconic over-the-counter blends, Mixture 79, and we're going to be paying tribute to one of the most famous smokers of Mixture 79, the chairman of the board himself, Old Blue Eyes, Frank Sinatra. So grab a pipe, load it up, and let's have a smoke together here, and we'll talk a little bit about Mixture 79. Now, I have devoted a corncob pipe to it, a Missouri Meerschaum, specifically to this blend. I don't smoke this blend that often, but I do enjoy it. And it's one of those blends that is very unique and, might ghost your pipe. So that's why you want to devote a pipe to it specifically, maybe a corncob. I think it smokes really well out of a cob. You might want to devote like a Dr. Grabo or something like that, Medico or whatever, a cheaper pipe, and use that specifically to smoke this blend. This blend is one of those that has a lot of emotions attached to it. Either you love it or you hate it, and if you hate it, you think it's one of the worst blends out there. And there's a lot of people who really hate it. If you look at tobaccoreviews.com, I think it's one of the lowest scores of any blend. I think it's like 1.8. But it has its supporters and people who view it favorably. I'm one of those people. I think that it's a good blend. It's unique. It's unique, and there's a lot of history attached to it, so that makes it that much more enjoyable to smoke. It is a burley blend. Now, the topping, you're going to get hints of vanilla, anise, or licorice. I do believe they say there's like an alcohol topping or something on there as well. And there's a lot of strong hints, like floral notes. Floral, I think, would be something that really pops out and makes it unique. And you may get a slight chemical flavor. Some people say they do with this blend, and I think most of the people that get that don't like it. But I don't really get the chemical flavor. I mainly get the floral essence with it. And some people absolutely hate any type of floral essence. Like I like jasmine tea. My wife doesn't really care for it because she's somebody that doesn't really like the floral flavorings. But now they describe it as a ribbon cut. I'm gonna disagree unless they've changed it here. Stuff I have is fairly aged. I think it's more of a cube cut, to be honest. But easy to light. There's really not a whole lot of gurgling or anything with it. And I think the aroma, not just the flavoring, is kind of a floral as well. So, all in all, Mixture 79 is a good blend, good over-the-counter blend, something with a lot of history attached to it. Frank Sinatra smoked it. Hugh Hefner of Playboy fame, that was his blend, probably one of the most famous pipe smokers of the modern era. So a lot of people liked it. Not that bad. Like I said, the people that hate it, I've heard it described as if you tried to smoke a urinal cake in your pipe, it's pretty much equivalent to smoking this blend. I disagree with that. I think there's a lot of people that want to hate on over-the-counter blends in particular, American blends, and that's all it is. It's just hate. So don't believe all the hype. Go out and pick yourself up a pouch and try it. Now, to talk about one of the most famous smokers of Mixture 79, Frank Sinatra. Now, I am somebody who really enjoys big band and the crooner era, so Frank Sinatra is held in very high regard by me. Sinatra was probably one of the most talented singers and entertainers of all time, and he rose from very modest beginnings from Hoboken, New Jersey. It started out, he was looking across at New York City, and I think he had just attended a show or something, and I don't remember who was singing, if it was Rudy Valley or somebody like that, but I do believe that's the story. And he looked at he was a very young man at the time, 16, 17, and he looked at his girlfriend and said, I can do that, and the rest was history. So he started out, singing and got noticed, and small venues and that sort of thing, and it just caught fire. He was a boxer, fairly talented boxer in his younger days. But really just kind of the American dream, starting from a, working class Italian family and becoming one of the most well-known, influential Americans in later years. And he started out with his real big break was when he got signed on to be the lead vocalist for Tommy Dorsey. And that happened, I think, about 1938 or so. So he was about 23 years old at that time. And Tommy Dorsey was one of the hottest, big bands. And, he was a trombonist and just one of the best. One of the best. You had Tommy Dorsey, and then you had his brother Jimmy Dorsey, who had his separate band, and they were among the most popular music acts across the world at the time. And Sinatra really just rose, became huge due to being associated with Tommy Dorsey. And they had a falling out, and Sinatra went off on his own. And that's kind of when you started during World War II era. Sinatra was singing on his own, and he was pretty much the biggest sex symbol of World War II. So he had all these, they called them Bobby Soxers, and all these young girls, would go to his concerts and swoon, and they would pass out, and kind of the same thing that they did with Elvis, in later acts. Kind of started with Frank Sinatra, and he had some gigs in some big movies. He had his movie Anchors Away with Gene Kelly, and he had some more serious roles as well. So after, beginning in the late 40s, he kind of took a downturn. It was kind of a hard time for him, late 40s, early 50s. And, popularity had kind of diminished a little bit. Money was a little bit tighter. And, he was actually drinking quite a bit at that time. And but he didn't let that stop him. He got back into movies, had some really well-received roles in the mid to late 50s. And then he, in the late 50s, he teamed up with a bunch of other entertainers and started the Rat Pack. So you had, Dean Martin, who was one of the hottest acts in the 50s. So Dean Martin was a good buddy, and they got together. Joey Bishop, Peter Lawford, the whole gang. Sammy Davis Jr. Couldn't forget Sammy Davis Jr. And they go out to Vegas, do a lot of their acts out in Vegas, and it was a new cultural icon, the Rat Pack. A bunch of guys, middle-aged guys who dressed well and liked to drink and smoke and sing and laugh and just put on one heck of a show. I mean, they were all kind of alpha, strong guys. Men wanted to be them, and women wanted them, and that was the Rat Pack. So they had huge success during the early 60s in particular. Sinatra was a Democrat. I won't hold that against him, but he was very involved with the election of John F. Kennedy, and was very influential in that election when Kennedy went up against Richard Nixon. And Kennedy gets elected. Sinatra kind of felt slighted because he kind of thought Kennedy used him to get elected, and then he kind of put distance between them. Mainly the distance that Kennedy wanted to put between himself and Sinatra was due to Sinatra's connections with the mob. Sinatra was very well connected with the mob, especially mob boss Lucky Luciano. So JFK wanted to kind of distance from that. Then, the late 60s, 70s, 80s, Sinatra continued to release albums. And the difference between young Sinatra of the late 30s and 40s and the music of the 50s and 60s and 70s was very substantial. He had a very crisp voice when he was a young man. Really just a great voice. And it was more of a ballad, and those were the songs. Obviously he did have more of like a swing, jazz presentation and voice early on too, but the music of the Rat Pack days was just going up and building out. That was the thing with Sinatra, especially at that stage in his life. It just confidence overflowed, and he just went up there, and you can tell when he was singing that he didn't think that anybody else in the world was better than him. And I think that that's what a lot of really truly great people, that's the mindset that they have, is that they're the best. You have to have that sort of self-confidence, I think, in order to be truly great. You have to believe in yourself first before it happens and other people think you're great. And Sinatra never lacked confidence in his life. It only grew. Probably the worst time was, like I said, late 40s, early 50s, when he kind of fell out of favor and started drinking and stuff. That was probably the lowest point, but he rebounded and was just as strong and as powerful, as an older man as he was when he was, the number one show in the world. in the World War II era. So, Frank Sinatra, you were the man. A lot of respect for you. Really enjoy your music. And, you know, your pipe tobacco wasn't bad, too. I always think about, you know, smoking Mixture 79 and just thinking how many just super sexy Hollywood starlets and models were, you know, in a room with Frank Sinatra while he was smoking this, or, you know, Playboy bunnies with Hugh Hefner. So I guess if there's a Studley over-the-counter blend, it's got to be Mixture 79. As much as people want a dog on it, there's probably no other blend that is associated with just sex appeal and, you know, the Hollywood life, Playboy life, Mixture 79. So, on that, I'll go ahead and conclude this video. If you liked it, please hit like. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. And for those of you who have, I really appreciate it. So until next time, if the good Lord's willing and the creek don't rise, I'll see you. It's been Paul Piper. Take care.